Okay, this should be the fourth and last video for this giant slide deck I made. So we were talking about learning objectives and how do students and mentors decide what this experience, this whole capstone should look like. So for students, I would encourage you to have a call or an email exchange to complete pages 29 and 30 of the capstone guide with your mentor. But before you do that, students, I want you to consider what you want to learn and how you want to customize each of those objectives that we just went through. Come in with some sort of idea, because that will be just speed the conversation along. Mentors, I'd love if you guys could consider what projects you have going on at your site and or what other expertise do you want to pass on to this next generation of healthcare practitioners. Ultimately, this should be a collaborative process. It's directed by the student, but it's guided along by that mentor. Ultimately, this is a mentoring type of experience. So after you've decided on these objectives, then you need to figure out the activities you're going to engage in order to learn the things you want to learn. And this feels a little bit counterintuitive sometimes, because I think we automatically jump to, well, what am I going to do when I'm there for 40 hours a week for 14 weeks? Take a step back, try it this way, and think about what do you want to learn? And then you can think, what am I going to do to meet those goals? So if you have a goal to be able to present professionally in rounds or to give a professional presentation to managers, what are the things you need to do to engage, to be able to learn that, to be able to do that? So perhaps you need some time observing rounds, or time interacting with managers, or time learning how to put together an effective continuing education course, an effective lecture, how to create a PowerPoint that conveys what it is you want to convey. Maybe you also need to spend some time learning how to ask the right questions to find out if you delivered the information correctly. So again, all of these activities may or may not include direct client interaction. This means that you're not going to treat any client that comes to the clinic, and your job is not to be the shadow of the mentor that you have, which again is very different if you're in a traditional type of rotation. You will treat selected clients that will benefit from the specific interventions that you're learning about in this general topic and in this area of focus, if you're in occupational therapy practice. If you're not in that area of focus, if you're in program development, well, that may still involve client time because you're going to be implementing some sort of program or working with other programs to see how do programs even work at this site. Ultimately, you're going to be in-depth learning about a certain client population or a problem. And then, like I said, this may include service competency for certain aspects of treatment. So yes, I absolutely expect students to treat, but I do not, no one should be treating 100% of the time or matching their site mentor's productivity. That's really not the purpose of this type of experience. If I'm not treating, what am I doing? This is a really great question. And I think oftentimes it's clear as mud until you do it. And sometimes by the end of week 1, early week 2, you finally kind of understand what's going on. But to try to hedge your bets, you want to think about what projects are happening at the site. What type of clients come and go, consumers, who does this company serve? Are there some committees that are standing committees or project-based committees that could be learned about? Are there quality improvement initiatives within the company? Are there staff training materials or onboarding materials that need updated? Client education materials that might be as relevant to the practice? What other types of professionals are there that interact with this type of client that you could learn from? And then again, additional self-study on the topic itself. So those are just some ideas on how to get from what do I want to learn? Okay, now that I know what I want to learn, how am I going to learn it? You're basically creating your own college course. So how do we evaluate all of this? So we use this one big long form that is your learning plan and evaluation all in one. Our learning objectives are built into this, basically this memoranda of understanding where it spells out everyone's responsibilities and evaluation form. This form will also provide a brief description of the experience overall that the students write. It includes the responsibilities of all the parties, including the faculty advisor, the capstone coordinator, the student, and the site mentor. A brief summary of their Big P project and a brief mentoring agreement. What do we want to get? What's the interaction going to look like between the student and the mentor? Lay all the expectations out at the forefront. That makes such a big difference during the experience. This form is signed by the student, faculty advisor, capstone coordinator, and site mentor. And according to ACOTE, which is our accrediting body, this must be done before the student starts. We'll allow tweaks and changes up until about the end of week 2, but they have to have something signed by everyone before they start. As a side note, they also must have their completed literature review and completed needs assessment turned into their faculty advisor before they are permitted to start. So I want to talk briefly about mentoring. Is this the same as fieldwork supervision or clinical rotation supervision? No and yes. Your mentor should connect with students with the opportunities to learn what they want to learn to meet objectives. Students, if you don't communicate what you want to learn, you will be treated just like a fieldwork student, or worse, a new grad, just to be productive or cover for illness days. That's not what we want to happen. That's not what this is. This is about mentoring you into the profession. And I do have a great mentoring 101 article that I'll provide to students that they can share with their site mentors as well. So let's just take a brief look overall at this capstone timeline. So fall of year 2, students have this course with me where they turn on this preliminary proposal of a preferred topic, area focus, and site suggestions. Winter, about a year ahead of the actual experience, they're on their first clinical rotation, and that's when they're making connections to their capstone sites and mentors. Once that happens, summer, they are finishing their second level 2 and beginning their literature review. And this is the first time they'll need to really connect with their site mentor. They're going to do what we call a rapid review of the literature to get an idea of what is even out there on this topic. And they're going to come up with some sort of concept map that shows where are the pockets of literature in this area of interest. They'll need to talk to you, the mentors, with their faculty advisors at this point, probably sometime in June, to narrow their topic down into one of these bubbles on the concept map that they've created. That is, half hour on a phone call or a couple of email exchanges. So then they're going to execute that literature review, the search. They're going to pull their articles during the month of August and read all of them and appraise all of them. And then they're going to come back to campus in fall of year 3, and they're going to write this guideline. I've used the word clinical here, but it should say practice or education or administration. They'll work with their faculty mentor to do this. At the same time, they're enrolled in an advanced topics course and a management course, a consultation course. And so they're really taking everything they've learned so far and elevating it, and then really thinking about, again, how do we practice at the top of our licenses? The end of fall year 3, this is, in the 2 months before they begin the capstone experience, they'll work with that site mentor to write objectives and determine activities. So spring year 3 is the capstone experience where they're going to execute those learning objectives and execute the project. They need to finish up their project so that they can defend here at Ohio State's campus, usually the second week of April, so that they can disseminate their capstone. We hold an open house. We do a poster session. We invite site mentors and graduates and clinicians and everyone, families, friends, to come back. It's kind of a fun event. And then in May, year 3, they graduate. And ultimately, we want them to take this skill set out to practice and change practice for the better. So for those of you that would like a little bit more specifics for the experience itself, this is a sample timeline, which is totally flexible for the 14 weeks. So those first 2 weeks, they're really observing, confirming protocols, finalizing big P, little p projects and activities. They're going to start their final document. Their literature review and needs assessment goes in. If they are going to be treating clients, this is probably also the time that they're spending a lot of time with their therapist, establishing service competency in whatever those treatments, evaluations, interventions are. Weeks 3 and 4, they need to probably be identifying clients if they're implementing their guideline, or stakeholders if they're doing the analysis, and then begin that project. And then they're doing all those other learning objectives at the same time. Weeks 5 to 9 is really do your learning objectives, finish your case, write up the case, send it to their advisor, and work on final document sections 5 to 10. Week 10, really ask your faculty advisor when they need a full draft for their edits, usually mid-March. Your final document in a pretty final type of draft is due to all the committee by usually the last Wednesday in March. And at that point, you'll start to work on your PowerPoint for your verbal defense and your poster for your dissemination. And then week 14, you're going to finish up those learning objectives. So that's just a sample timeline for the actual experience. I want to leave you just with a final thought about the capstone. And so for all the mentors and all the students and grads out there, how do we change occupational therapy practice? A practitioner that is continually collecting outcomes and comparing their outcomes to the outcomes that are achieved in research, honestly, is the practitioner that I want to see. They know what's working best. They're keeping outcomes within their practice and they're comparing to what's out there. And as I mentioned earlier, what old textbook do you want your healthcare provider referencing when you go in with a health need? Research evidence alone will not change practice, and practice alone does not change the evidence. I highly believe that we have to work together. And I think that the capstone and this idea of translating knowledge from between the silos is really what's going to be able to do that. I thank you so much for watching these videos and bearing with me as I try to get through a lot of material. If you have any questions about our capstone process or want to chat about maybe taking a student in the future, please feel free to reach out. I thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.